the success in climbing the hill or the winning the race or any of that happens in your head long before it happens on the trail. If you believe you can do it, if you have self-reinforcement, you're so much better off than if you think you can't and if you think you're afraid.
Lube your chain and pump up those tires. It's time for Aging on Dirt, where we defy expectations one pedal stroke at a time. We age, but we don't have to get old, and we all want to experience the joy of mountain biking as long as possible. Are you starting to ride at an unreasonable age, getting back into it after a long layoff, or just wanting to extend how long you'll be riding? Then you're in the right place. And now, your host, Joel Zeeve.
So a few weeks ago, one of my listeners suggested that I interview a high school NICA head coach and offered several potential topics that we could cover. I thought that was really a great idea. Since I had recently met Mike Staten, today's guest, by doing a free clinic for his parents and coaches, Mike was the easy go-to for me to ask first. But as you're about to hear, I totally hit the jackpot with this. Many of you have told me that I'm a passionate mountain bike rider and coach, but Mike takes things to an entirely different level. Unless you're involved with NICA directly or have kids riding with a team, like me, your perception is probably limited to the interaction that you have with them on the trails. Mike's about to give you some completely different perspectives and quite possibly different ones that you may expect to hear from a head coach. You'll get some great life lessons from some of these kids' stories too. You're really going to enjoy listening in on this conversation. So here you go. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, this is going to be so cool. This the idea with actually inviting you on, the timing was real good because it was just shortly after we met and started talking about coaching, and one of my listeners said, "Hey, you should have a NICA head coach on." And he gave me all these ideas to talk about. I'm like, "Oh, that sounds really good. I know just the guy." So
well, there are a bunch of us around, but I'm honored that you chose me.
So before we dive too much into things, just to give everybody an idea of a little bit about just your riding, can you share with us really quick where you live, how old you are, and your favorite mountain bike trail to ride that's fairly close to home?
Let's see. I live in Riverdale. I'm 48, and probably my favorite trail in the area, I used to always say it was the Powder Mountain trails, the Brim and the other connecting trails.
Mm-hmm.
But with all the work going on at North Fork, it's competing for that top spot. It's pretty awesome now.
Oh yeah, and especially with the limited trails up at Powder.
Yeah, I really hope they open things back up again after this year.
Yeah, from what I've heard, that's pretty much going to happen. But you never know. It's private property; they can do whatever they want with it. So we'll just hope that they do. I'm curious, how did you get into mountain bike coaching?
So, as a kid, I have to tell the backstory for the story to make sense. I'll go fast though. I was shy. I was a September birthday and the youngest kid in my grade and a late bloomer, which meant I was the smallest kid in junior high for 4 years and
Okay.
always the last one chosen for team sports and the first one blamed when things went wrong. Add to that, I realize now I had what we would call a social anxiety, but I loved doing things just alone or with a few friends. I'm kind of an introvert, if you will, and spent a lot of time on my bike. Got my first purchase on credit was a mountain bike when I was 21 years old, and followed shortly after by a wedding ring on credit. And then it was diapers on credit, and I didn't really feel great about going out and riding my bike and leaving my wife home with the kids after a long day of me being at work. So that's when it wasn't a deliberate or conscious thing, but really stopped riding for the most part. Occasional things with Boy Scouts or whatever. Until I was, this was 2011, so doing some math, I was about, how old was I? Late 30s, early 40s, late 30s. And overweight, out of shape, and decided to start getting my life back started out bike commuting training for a century ride.
Okay.
I figured I was riding on the road because it was too hard to ride mountain bikes, but I would get in shape and get back to mountain biking.
Sure.
Found a love for both road biking and mountain biking. In 2016, I said to my middle child, I had been following the growth of mountain biking as a high school sport, and he was just going into junior high.
Okay.
I asked my middle child if he wanted to try the mountain biking team, and he said he did. And my boys, I have 5 of them, right?
Oh, wow.
They're all obsessive compulsive soccer players. And so he was the first, they'd go biking with me, but soccer was their love. And so when I went to his mom and said, "Hey, hon, he wants to try mountain biking," she's like, "You put him up to this, didn't you?" Like, well, let's go talk to him. Because, I mean, I was a little excited about having a kid that would share in one of my obsessions.
Oh, I'm sure.
So she asked him if he had to choose, what would he choose? He's like, "You know what? I want to try mountain biking. I can always go back and play more soccer." But we worked it out to do both.
Very cool.
He was going into 7th grade, and older brothers were like, "Well, no, we don't want to detract from soccer." But after 1 year of watching him in the program and realizing how little soccer they would have to actually miss, because he continued to do both, they were both wanting to join the program. For one, it was too late. For the other one, it wasn't. He could have 2 more years in the program. And now all of my boys are either on the team or coaching the team. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a good time.
So how did you move from just a parent riding with your kids to a coaching position and then ultimately the head coach?
So the first year, so this was 2016, I went to the league's website and found out what the teams were in the area, and Bonneville had a team. It was actually their second year having a Bonneville team. And before that, they were part of the Weber County composite team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached out to the coach and said, "Hey, I have a son who's going to be in 7th grade. Do you have a junior development program?" The league divides it up between 7th and 8th graders and 9th through 12th graders, going over as far as what grade they're in the summer before the school year, since it all happened mostly in the summer.
Okay.
Anyway, he said he had
the junior development is 7th and 8th.
Yeah. So as soon as they're at the end of their 6th grade year, they're eligible to join the team.
Okay.
And that's where my son was. And he said that he didn't have any junior high kids planning on joining the team this year. He had one the year before. And so we just decided I would head up the junior development program, and really as a separate kind of a thing. And so I went to some of his friends and got one of their dads to agree to help me coach, and then just started pushing it out any way we could to find people who were interested. And we ended up with about 8 or 9 kids in the junior development program that year. There were about 12 kids on Bonneville, and just had a great time. And every year it's grown. So the second year, John McCain, who was the high school coach, and I talked, and we're like, "You know what? Let's just combine and do it all as one program. And instead of dividing the kids up by age and how we sort out our ride groups, let's divide them by ability, and it'll be a lot more fun for everybody. Bigger, more friends, more camaraderie, I guess you call it, and just more fun on bikes." And so that's year number 2 in 2017. And year 2018, John and I talked, and he agreed that he only ever ended up as coach by accident, which I think happens to a lot of us,
I bet.
But he figured he'd have a happier relationship with his daughter, who was still in the program, if he didn't have to coach her and could just ride with her. So I stepped into the head coach role that year, and then that's where I've been ever since, as we've grown roughly 20 kids to 115 this year.
Wow, that is just amazing. And you've gotten a ton of leadership skills out of this with the size of everything that you're organizing now and all the volunteers that you've got with the parents and the size of the team.
Yeah, it's definitely an organizational challenge. And there were plenty of growing pains along the way. As you start out, you're a head coach and you've got a few parents helping you out, and they're all eager volunteers, but you're all green, and you try out different things, and you offend a lot of people along the way as people don't like how you've done things. But the people that were really dedicated to the sport and to the team, we worked together, overcame differences, and worked out an organizational structure. So it's grown from having a head coach. From there, it was a head coach and a team administrator or manager. And now we have a coaching or a board of directors now for our 501c3 nonprofit. We're all official, So there's 5 of us that make all the decisions together. And it works really great, actually. Most of the time, I bring the issues to them, but I don't have to tell them which way I would go because we all just decide together. We make much better decisions as a group than
Sure.
any of us would make as an individual.
Okay.
I mean, the skills go both ways. Work helps mountain bike coaching helps work.
So I did want to kind of tackle what I think is a potential elephant in the room based on feedback that I've gotten from other folks about NICA. So until I saw your list of ideas that you wanted to share today, I was your typical trail user who has had no involvement at all with NICA, no kids on a team. So, my perspective, when I say typical, as you would imagine, it's limited to the interaction that I've had with the teams on the trails and at the trailheads. The
All those
vast
stupid
majority.
kids.
What's that?
All those stupid kids. They need to learn how to ride bikes and how to be good on the trail.
No, I mean, most of it has been, by far, most of it's been positive and, a rare negative experience. And when I do have, those rare negative experiences, I do my best to focus on the fact that, hey, these kids are on bikes. They're not on their phones. They're interacting with other humans. They're outside. They're not hanging out with poor influencers. And most of the people that I hear from, it seems to be human nature, of course, to focus on the negative, like trail etiquette and crowded trailheads and things like that. But what do you see when you run into people with those attitudes about NICA?
I think, and this is basic human nature, but anybody who has decided to try commuting on a bike understands what it's like to join part of a subclass or a group that's discriminated against. But we as people in general, we like to simplify life, and we do it by putting people who are different than we are into groups that we can then judge based on our own stereotypes or preconceptions. So that might be the case of drivers that think people who ride their bikes to work are weird, and every cyclist runs a stoplight and is stupid and cuts them off and all that kind of stuff. The truth of the matter is that that's not really the case, and cyclists are at least as law-abiding as drivers. We just break different laws, if you will. Who drives the speed limit every time they get out there? But nobody notices because there's zero penalty for that.
Correct.
But it's the same with mountain biking, though, in that you've got people who identify themselves as mountain bikers, and we've done it the way we have for years, where we go out alone or with a couple of friends. We enjoy being out in nature and the trails. And as the trails fill up, we start to get this not in my backyard kind of a mentality and start classifying people into groups. And so you have these teams, they're all wearing the same shirts and they're all part of a group. It's easy to say the teams are the problem, or it's easy to say that the equestrians are the problem or the hikers are the problem. It's when the reality is we are all trail users and we all have the same right to the trail and the same responsibility for the trail. And I think mountain biking, one of the reasons I have always loved it is because I consider a group of a bunch of chill people. We're out there having fun doing what we love. Sure. And I think the sport attracts people like that. And it's no different with the high school mountain biking program. It attracts kids that want to be out having fun. And they're, for the most part, chill people out there having a good time. And we've just happened to have an organization that helps kids do it, who, like you said, otherwise couldn't because they'd be on the couch. And that's why I want to coach. A is so my children have the opportunity, but the other reason is because I wish this had been a thing when I was a kid. And I could have taken this kid with social anxiety who was always the last one chosen for the team sports, and I could have competed only against myself and done so as part of a team with friends. And it would have completely changed my middle school and high school experience. And I love seeing that it does the same thing for these kids, the differences it makes. And the other thing is it takes something that is inherently a self-centered activity. You go out and you ride a bike for fun or for fitness or whatever the case may be, but you're not doing anybody else in the world any good by going mountain biking. You're doing yourself a lot of good. So it's fine. It's great. But when you go out and you coach mountain biking, not only do you get the self-serving benefits, but you also get the satisfaction and the meaning that comes from helping lift somebody else by doing what you love.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah, I love that. Since you're with kids every day and you're approaching 50, what's it like being an older rider and riding with these kids?
I like that question. I joke all the time as I'm talking to others about it, other adults mostly, that it both keeps me young and ages me prematurely
Both at the same time, huh?
at the same time.
Both.
And depending on the day, it's different. But, I mean, my wife and I decided to have kids early on in our marriage so that we would be able to do fun things with them when they were teenagers, And getting back on my bike and made me feel years younger and so much better and so much healthier. And, commuting was a great excuse to ride and kept me fit and stuff. But mountain bike coaching is an even better excuse to ride. And, our program is different with the different schools, but we're allowed to have 3 on the bike activities a week. That's a great fitness plan, And it is a challenge to plan things that will give the different riders enough challenge and growth, where there are so many different levels of riders. But I found that the coaches need to work out just the same as the kids do. Every year we have a roughly 2-to-1 ratio of riders to coaches. So most of the time when you get 2 kids that join, you get 1 adult that joins as a ride volunteer.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And every year, one of these adults is thinking they're having a heart attack, and I'm kind of laughing at them because I've been there. I've had people quit smoking because they couldn't keep up, and they realized they were not living life to the fullest because of it. Of course, lots of healthier choices made by the adults on the team, and we're always looking more fast coaches. We divide our team up now into 9 groups by ability level because we have that many kids. We've got a couple, like the coach that coaches our slowest group. I always tell him there's a special place in heaven for him when he gets there because he's so patient with these kids.
Oh,
but the other side of the coin is that he has heart troubles and he can't exert himself too much.
Okay.
But he loves to get out on the bike, and so being there with these slow kids, he's getting his ride in, he's having fun with the kids, and he's getting the exercise that his heart needs without overdoing it,
Right.
And we've got everywhere in between. Most of these, a lot of us, and some of the coaches, it's the whole family on the team. You got both parents and you got several kids, and it's just great.
Right. What have you noticed as far as if you compare the parents to the kids as far as their ability to learn the ability to learn the skills?
Kids learn so much faster. Oh man, and the other nice thing about being as a kid is that your bones are a lot more flexible. Kids will crash and bounce, and they'll get scraped, and they'll be up and at it again. And adults will crash, and something will crack, or they'll tear something in their shoulder or whatever, and there's a whole lot of pressure the adults feel to keep up with the kids. The injury rate is roughly double for the adults in the sport than the kids.
I bet.
They've been doing studies this whole time. We report all our statistics. And for the kids, the injury rate's similar to basketball or soccer or something.
Okay.
But for the adult, it's a lot higher because if the kids can do it, can't we do it too?
Sure. When you say the kids learn faster, is that mostly a mental thing or a physical thing or both?
I think it's both. I mean, if I wanted to get all technical and sciencey, I would probably say they have a lot more brain plasticity and they're great at forming new neural paths,
Okay.
We call it muscle memory, but really it's training our brains for things,
Right.
They are learning so fast. And adults, we get set in our ways, But a big part of it, I think also absolutely is overcoming mental blocks and fears, My wife, I've tried to get her into riding with me since we met. One of our first dates was on the quarry trail back in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and I had a guidebook that said it was easy, and I looked behind me and 5 minutes into the ride and she was nowhere to be found, and I can't believe she kept dating me after that, let alone married me. But
no kidding.
Yeah, it took years before I could get her back on the bike with me, and things were going really well until she broke her wrist. When it was my fault, I feel like it was my fault. I took her on a trail she wasn't ready for.
Sure.
And her tires weren't pumped up enough, and then she went over the bars, and that's been really hard to get her back into that. But she's got skills that she doesn't think she has because her mindset says, I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way with coaches and kids. Kids crashed where they shouldn't have because I shouldn't have had those kids there or whatever. And you learn very quickly to err on the side of caution. I always tell the kids, when in doubt, to dismount. We don't have a just send it mentality like the kids do riding on their own. It's a
sure.
Well, you see something that makes you nervous, let's stop and talk about it. What skills does it take to ride through this feature? Do you have the skills? Yes or no? If the answer is no, we're walking.
Right.
If the answer is yes, can you visualize yourself using those skills? Yes or no? And So it's been great, actually. I've had kids that have frozen up on the mountain with anxiety as they've been. Yeah, I mean, we were up on the top of the Eagles Ridge Trail in Mantaway, and I had this kid completely freeze up right up at the top, where you have no choice but to go down the steep switchbacks. And we had to talk through it all and get his head back in the game, And it was fun to see these kids grow and overcome that.
Oh, very cool. So what would you say the adults do better than the kids? Where does being older, where's that an advantage to us?
We do a good job, I think, at keeping the kids from passing us on the downhill and doing stupid things.
So you're saying the adults do a better job of going slower? Is that your answer?
No, it really is though. Because we know what the price for failure is because we paid it a few more times than they have. There's kids have this elevated sense of risk and reward. They get stupid emotional rewards for doing risky things that we say, yeah, that's just not worth it. So we got kids saying, I want to go faster on the downhill. Like, no, you're not ready for that yet. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really good way if you want your kid to enjoy the sport, to get into the sport, and to be safe as he does it. It's a really good way to do that. It's a whole lot better than sending him off with his friends into the trail and saying, hey, go ride, and I hope you come back alive.
That's some interesting feedback and insight between the two big age groups. So I appreciate that. Because what have you learned personally from coaching the kids? I guess you can address this one or two ways, specific skills on the bike, and even just life lessons that you've learned from riding and coaching the kids that you may not have learned any other way.
Well, mountain biking definitely is a sport that requires skill and fitness, but the hill, the success in climbing the hill or the winning the race or any of that happens in your head long before it happens on the trail.
Okay.
So, kids that if you believe you can do it, if you have self-reinforcement, you're so much better off than if you think you can't and if you think you're afraid. And it's so fun to see these kids come out there. Every year you get new little kids, 7th graders, that think they're kind of scared and they think they're not going to race and they're just going to join and do the best they can and have some fun. And through the summer, they gain confidence and they realize they can do this. And as mountain bikers, we know the satisfaction of looking back on the trail where we've just come from and realize I came all the way from clear down there. Wow.
Right.
And it is so fun to see the kids build that confidence and then decide to race after all and find out they're good at it. NICA, the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, they have 5 guiding principles. A lot of sports talk about their guiding principles and whatever, and it sounds like a bunch of fluff. But one of the things I love about the Mountain Biking League is that it is, and this has been the case, every coach I've talked to, every team that I've seen, these guiding principles really do guide us, that it is fun. Of course, everybody wants to have a great time, right? But then the inclusivity of the sport is just fantastic. Everybody's part of the team, whether they are, I've got kids on the team that have serious health problems and are really, really slow. I've got kids that ride their bike up the hill faster than I ride down and everywhere in between, and everybody's part of the team. My son put it this way. He's like, I love that, you see us at school and we are in all sorts of different social circles. You've got the basketball player and you've got the theater kids and you've got the cowgirls and you've got the whatever the case may be. And none of us may really hang out much, but as soon as we get our mountain bike shirts on and as soon as we're at the trail, we are all friends doing the same thing. And I love that they all have a place to belong.
That's so cool.
So you've got the fun, you've got the inclusivity, you've got equity, giving everybody an equal chance, being part of the overall community, and then the respect for each other, respect for the trails. And the values really do help these kids grow in character and grow in strength, both mentally and physically. And it's really fun to see. I love what it does for them.
Okay. That's sweet. What would you say are the toughest parts of coaching?
You've got the normal things you would expect dealing with kids, that every parent gets too, trying to get the siblings to get along or whatever. But the hardest thing, honestly, is I think, well, right now things are going great. I love the parents and coaches that I'm working with. But dealing with parents and coaches who have a different coaching philosophy, different opinions about how things can be done, and we're working out those differences is probably the biggest challenge.
Okay, I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, and And I would imagine it's more unique for the mountain biking because all of your assistants have kids on the team. So it's not like they're watching from the sidelines of a soccer game once a week or twice a week. They're actually out on every practice with you, right in your face. So it gives them
Right.
a easier opportunity to share their feedback with you, if you will.
Right. And you get an issue with parents who don't understand that in the end, mountain biking is an individual effort. Wherever you come in on the standings, you come in there because you were able to put in the effort. And that motivation can't come from anybody else. You don't have teammates yelling at
Right.
you if you don't complete the pass or anything like that. You have to be your own motivator. And when parents think that my job as a coach is to motivate those kids, well, there's only so much I can do. And so you've got parents that think their kids are the star performer, and they blame you that their kid's not more motivated and trying harder. So that's where the trouble comes in.
Okay.
I mean, communication skills are really what matters. That you got to be able to manage their expectations and help them understand and see what you're doing and help them understand the process. And you know, a lot of times a parent who wants better performance out of his kid, and you'll do what you can to help the kid want to perform. And then when these parents see that their kid wants to quit the sport because they're feeling too much pressure to compete, they realize, oh, well, maybe I had that wrong, you know?
Right.
So,
Okay.
and we have a great culture as a team, and parents, see it, and it usually they come around to our way of thinking pretty quick, and it works out real well.
Okay. Cool. So you've mentioned like so many things that you love about coaching. If you had to pick one, maybe two things that you think are the best part about coaching, what would you say those would be?
One is I love that it becomes something I can enjoy with my whole family. Like I said, I'm down to only one kid on the team. For a while I had three, but I've got 4 kids who are coaches now. And
That's so
the
cool.
races are just big family things, and we have adventures as a family that we would never have had if it wasn't for the mountain biking thing.
Okay.
Coaching the team, let alone just mountain biking in general. And then the other is I've got 8 team pictures up on my wall now from the 8 years that I've been doing this. We're going to be taking another one next week for year number 9.
Mhm.
And I look at these kids, and you know, I made a list one day. I went through and made a list of how many kids I've actually coached, and it's up over 200 kids now
Oh
that
wow.
I've coached. Since I started doing this, and they're my friends, and I made a difference in their life, and they have in mine, and it's about so much more than the bike.
Nice. So over those 9 years, if you look at your coaching style, how's that changed from your first couple of years to the way that you're coaching now?
I would say I've become a lot more confident and self-assured in my coaching methods. So every time a kid comes to joins the team, I'm always aware of how am I going to help this kid become a lifelong cyclist who loves mountain biking, and and make sure they have a positive experience. And I think I've become a lot better at reading people and helping them enjoy the sport, whether they are crazy fast or really scared and cautious or anywhere in between.
All right, cool. He's going to shift gears a little bit on you. You've got a lot going on with trail advocacy. Can you share what you've got going on and what your vision is to bring some of the non-NICA racing back to northern Utah? I know we used to have races at Nordic Valley and in Snow Basin. What do you got going on to bring something like that back to us adults?
I hadn't ever raced mountain biking until I did El Doce. I think it was 2018. I did El Doce.
Okay.
And then I did it again last year, but I still don't feel like that was a race. It's more like an endurance experience, like a century ride. I did an ICUP race though 2 years ago, and that's very much like what the high school kids race. And any adult who has not tried it, I recommend you try it, if only so that you can understand what these kids are going through. Because I had so much anxiety a couple of weeks before that race, I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was so stressed. And then the race day was so exciting. I rode so much faster. I mean, and maybe a little stupid fast on the downhill, but it was fun, exciting, and awesome. I love the experience, and I really love the idea of everybody getting into it and having a chance to do it. So I love that these kids are doing the high school racing thing, and then as they graduate, they still go and they go out and they race, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need more of that. But I think even more important than racing, I think, is having the trails, because the trails are crowded. And having the high school mountain bike kids on there doesn't make them any less crowded, obviously,
Sure.
but it gives a whole lot more political clout to getting trails. And that's
Yes,
our as a sport, I think our biggest challenge to having the venues to practice on is in the end a political one, because you're out there, you're dealing with people on horses and people hiking, and like I say, everybody puts people into a class and then wants to discriminate against them. And those mountain bikers, you know, they're tearing up the trails and cutting corners and all those things. Well, these perceptions aren't true, and that's, I think, part of the beauty of the high school mountain biking program, is that it's becoming so big and so ubiquitous. You know, when I first started coaching, people were like, mountain biking, that's a high school sport. And now people are like, mountain biking, oh yeah, my friend's kid does that. Oh, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And having so many people into the sport and understanding the sports, the number of trails in our area is growing so much faster. And I think that it's very much related to the growth of the high school mountain biking sport and the increased demand that puts on our trail system.
That
and
makes
the
sense.
increased clout that gives us as a political body.
Okay.
So next time
Well,
when you
and
see a team out there and you're like, oh, all these kids making my trails crowded, and remember that their parents are voting.
Well, and
And
not only that, in a very short time, those kids are going to be voting too.
yes, yes, indeed. And the other thing too is we're out there as a team doing several service projects a year. You know, the Riverdale Bike Park was a pet project of mine when I was on the city council, and that's its own story. But one of the objections that was raised by the city is, well, who's going to maintain it? And the Bonneville Mountain Bike Team has maintained it every year since then. You know, we're
cool.
always expanding it and fixing it and keeping it working. And that doesn't just happen by accident. But
Sure.
we're also out there doing other stuff. I have trails I want to build. I have a plan. I'm working with the mayor of Riverdale to restore the trails that have been cut by the developers to the south, how to relocate Tornado Alley all onto city property and make it a permanent trail.
Okay.
And the mountain bike kids that are going to help me do that.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very cool. So who's the sport for?
And I would love to say it's for everybody, but I've been doing this long enough to see that there are some people that it's just not for them. And that's fine. But I think it is for most of us. I don't know very many people who can't go out and enjoy mountain biking.
Mm-hmm.
I've been particularly pleased, I guess, by seeing the growth of the sport for women and girls. You know, we have 30 girls on our team now, and I just think it's great. We've got a girl, we have the GRIT program, this team that NICA calls it. It stands for Girls Riding Together. So we have some dedicated women coaches who work with these girls and love seeing the girls ride hard and fast and make these boys feel like they got to ride harder and faster. You know, it is just so much fun to see. I don't have daughters of my own, so for me, these mountain bike kids are my kids in a lot of ways, and these mountain bike girls are my daughters, and I love seeing them learn to go hard, learn to have fun on the bike, overcome their fears, and just be hardcore. And it's really exciting to see these kids grow, boys and girls. So
Right.
and I've got kids that came to the sport as serious gamers, out of shape, and this is the first physical thing they've done that have embraced the sport. I've got, kids that have come to the sport as athletes on the basketball team and love the sport. I've got kids that, that never were part of any team sport, and they joined the team and they love it. And we've got a place for all of them.
Okay. Nice. So cool to see. You've shared so much. I really appreciate the time today. And I think everybody's going to get a really unique perspective on what NICA is all about with what we talked about today, and just your pure enthusiasm for your job as coach and for the sport. If someone wants to connect with somebody at NICA, if they want to learn about the team, how do they go about doing that?
Most of the schools have a team that represents their same geographical area, but it's not actually a school sport. It is a club sport, if you will. And the Utah High School Mountain Biking League is just utahmtb.org.
Okay.
At their website, one of their tabs or drop downs or whatever is teams, and it has the state divided up into a region. And you can contact any team in any region through that website. And the thing to keep in mind, though, is that because races are in August and September and October, registration has a hard deadline, June 1st, where the league won't let anybody register for that year after June 1st. And
Including coaches?
coaches can sign up anytime, fortunately.
Okay.
So if you are wanting to coach and you don't have a kid in the program, you can just contact any team and say, hey, can I come coach for you? And whether they have a spot for you or not is up to the team.
Sure.
But if you want to get your kid into the sport, I would reach out to the team, January, February, March. Make sure you don't miss that registration window.
Okay.
Every summer,
Just,
people reach out, and I have to say it's too late, and I hate that.
oh, I bet.
The races start in August, and there is a race schedule on the league's website at utahmtb.org.
Okay.
And the races are crazy, awesome all-day events. They start at 8 in the morning and they finish at 4:30 in the afternoon. And they'll have several, 1,500 kids there racing throughout the day. And you can
Wow.
just show up and watch a race. There's no admissions. You just come and check it out. It's
Okay.
just a party.
Well, thanks for sharing all that, and we'll catch you on the next one. I know you got some ideas for an additional podcast too, so we'll see when we can get that scheduled.
It's been nice talking to you.
You too.
Well, that's another lap around the bike park for Aging on Dirt. I hope you've learned something and/or found this entertaining. Most importantly, go out and apply what you've learned so you can experience more joy on your bike. Remember, Joel wants your input. What topics and/or guests do you want to hear? Reach out to him where you're listening to the podcast, on Facebook, or find his email/phone on his coaching website, jzmtb.com. Until next time, have fun and be safe out there.